All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, if you're watching this broadcast as a replay, please push hashtag replay in the comment section. Those of you who are watching from Facebook, and those of you who are going to be seeing this on LinkedIn, feel free to like, comment, and share. Again, this is Strategy Sunday with Dr. Ken. I thank you for being a loyal follower at this point in time and following me for the last few weeks as I've been more consistent in my effort to bring this broadcast to you. Sunday just seems to be the best day because in my mind, I think that's how we get our week started, figure out what didn't work in the previous week or weeks, or sometimes months, and figure out how we can make a change going forward. So that's kind of the background behind Strategy Sunday. How do we get our game plan together before the week starts? I know oftentimes we dread Mondays, but we shouldn't be dreading it anymore. There are ways we can overcome that. Okay. So as you can see, so for those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Ken Richmond. I'm a board certified psychiatrist, veteran and corporate leadership coach. I help organizations pinpoint their leadership problems so they can develop thriving workplaces with less turnover, improve workplace morale, and increase organizational performance. Today's topic, as you guys can see, is called the D word, right? So any guesses on what that means or what that could mean, or any just in terms of business, and how do you think that can apply? I'll be curious to see some of the thoughts that are out there related to that word. Because again, it's a D word, help a leader out. So hopefully it implies that there's some degree of service that is implied there, in terms of, building someone up or building an organization up. Hey, Dr. Hassan, thank you for joining. All right, so let me ask you these 3 questions and see what your response is going to be, okay? How many of us believe we live disjointed lives? Disjointed, that's a D word, right? Could be disjointed. How many of us believe we are living in disruptive times? Okay, and that's another D word. Could affect organizations, could affect individuals. How many of us believe we are working within dynamic organizations? Another D word, okay? Well, if you answered yes to any of those questions, this broadcast is definitely for you, okay? However, the D word we're going to be talking about today is called delegate. Delegate, okay? That word, so just to define it, so we're all on the same page, as I define delegate, it means to entrust someone with a specific responsibility to act on your behalf or to act on behalf of others, right? So you're delegating some degree of responsibility, delegating some element of a task to someone else to get your work done or get more work done. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Trying to see if they have any questions out here. Okay. All right. So yeah, so I see some terms where like determination, demand, direction. Hey, Primus, Dr. Richmond, that was a funny one, right? So yeah, so all positive terms, and those will probably be good ideas for me to come up with my my next set of topics when the D word comes around, the letter D comes around in the alphabet, right? So before I get into the story or the tips and strategies for how we can use our ability to delegate, I'd like to tell a quick story about one of my experiences and seeing if it would be something that resonates with you. So I oftentimes talk about my time in the military because for me that was a very eye-opening time for me, professionally, personally, and I just like highlighting it because it's just part of who I am now. Even though I'm no longer in the military, I did my 5 years of active duty service, and now I'm in the civilian sector. So I'm always reminded of a time when I was promoted to manage or lead what we call flight or a section within the office. And I was always amazed that when my junior staff would, I don't know if they would make fun, but very much they would come up with their own definitions of what the MD initials behind my name would actually mean. So I am very curious to know what do you guys think they came up with as possible meanings for MD in my name? Like, leading their the clinic or having a role within the clinic. And today we're talking about being able to delegate So any thoughts on what the M and the D, what terminologies they came up with as a result of that? Give you guys a few seconds to think about some things. Let me just review the guest list and see who's tuning in here. All right, so Amber says main driver. Oh, that's a good one. However, I've not heard that one. Major delegator. Major delegator. Oh, the mean doctor. I don't think so. Mr. Delegator. Okay, so you guys are pretty close, actually. You guys are pretty close. Master Delegator. Yeah, so promise you got that one. So yes, they call me the Master Delegator, or the one who makes decisions, right? Or help them make decisions. So it wasn't anything that was negative. You guys did pretty good with that. I appreciate you guys participating and throwing out those terminologies out there. Yeah, but yeah, it was really being able to delegate. And one for me was having to learn, how do you delegate? How do you learn your people well enough to know what skills they have and what responsibilities they can take on? Because you just don't want to give responsibilities to somebody who may not be trained enough to do it. So that is, yes, master delegator or making decisions. So the interesting thing about that is that although they came up with their own terminology for what the MD stood for, in addition to being a physician and doctor, they realized that if I selected them for a task, it meant a few things. It meant that I had faith in them to actually get the task done. And it also conveyed to them that I'm pushing them to grow. I'm causing them to stretch, right? I'm pushing them beyond their comfort zone. There's always a term I utilize with folks in the office or folks I'm interacting with to say, if you're comfortable in your comfort zone, if you're not even comfortable in your comfort zone, then that is concerning, right? Because our comfort zone is supposed to be our home, where we feel at our best. But sometimes we don't even feel comfortable in our comfort zone. Is there anybody else out there who's felt that way? So we always have to push ourselves, but we also want to be supported by those individuals who are pushing us to do something, that may be a little beyond what we're comfortable doing. Okay. So, and the other thing that they knew is that they always had the backing. They always had the support. It wasn't like give a task, hope for the best, and if things didn't turn out right, then you would get yelled at or there would be some negative consequence. No, they always knew that there was some support. There was always that support as part of that. Okay, so I want you guys to take home. I want to what we call foot stomp. I want to foot stomp the following. I want you to remember that when we stretch ourselves, we allow ourselves to grow. Okay, in fact, when we're able to delegate specific responsibilities, it allows us to be seen as more of an essential role within an organization or within your peer group, right? And it also allows you to function at a higher level within not only your life but also within the organizations in which we serve. Okay, so let me just get caught up on any of the tasks, any of the comments that are there, and greet one of my guests as well, Miss Fleetwood. Thank you for joining. Hey, Dr. Mishika, thank you for joining. Okay, so now, any questions about that? Any thoughts? Any initial impressions about our talk on delegation or how we delegate certain responsibilities? Because I think we're all in agreement that we cannot just free willy delegate tasks that are inherent to our role and our responsibilities. But there are certain things we can give off to other individuals, provided it will help them grow, provided it will help them gain some more responsibility, right? Okay. So what I'd like to do right now is to transition into what I have coined or termed or came up with as the 3 tips and the strategies to put them in place, okay? To put them into practice when as it applies to delegating. So here are the 3 tips. So the first one is to identify the unique skill set of the individual you're going to be delegating a task to. The second tip is to explicitly tell the person why you selected them to do that specific task. And the third tip is to understand the big picture, right? To understand the big picture. So let's break those down. So the first tip, identify the unique skill set, right? Sometimes we overlook that, but when you identify the unique skill set, what you're doing is you're assessing for things like how good are they with time management? So as a leader, I may not be good at time management, but that person may be. And I know for that task, in order for that task to get done in a timely manner, I will need somebody with great time management skills. So I may leverage that person's skills where I may have a weakness or a deficit, right? So again, you always want to be able to assess the skill set. So that skill set could be time management. That skill set can also be organizational skills. Now, as a leader, we oftentimes don't want to admit that we don't have the sharpest organizational skills. However, as a leader, we also have to be aware of what we're good at and what we're not so good at, and to be able to put individuals in place to build, to fill those holes or to make that that deficit a strength, right? So the other thing you want to look at is personality type, right? When you're going back to identifying their unique skill set, the personality type. So what do I mean by that? Well, everybody isn't always outgoing. Everybody isn't always shy. So what we call introverts, extroverts, being aware of that person's personality type is going to be very helpful, how they interact with others. In other words, if you have a team of introverts, would you want another introvert leading that team? Or would you want an extrovert? On the contrary, if you had a team of extroverts, would you want an introvert leading that team? Or would you want an extrovert? In any event, I would say you can do any of them. You can do any combination of them. Because for that introvert who is leading an extrovert, a team of extroverts, they are now in a position where they're allowed to grow. For an extrovert leading a team of introverts, now they have to work on how do they motivate people? How do they get individuals to talk? How do they get conversations going, right? So again, it puts that person in a very unique position where they are allowed to grow. And obviously charismatic individuals, you can put them wherever you need to put them because they're gonna shine in most cases. Okay, but the biggest thing is to figure out, always have in mind, how do you want that skill set? How do you desire those skill sets to apply to that specific task? Like what's the desired outcome? So like I mentioned, the extrovert, you want them to be able to lead and build morale. You want that introvert to be able to interact, get out there more, become more sociable. So those are things you can do to get that person to grow beyond their comfort zone. The second tip is to explicitly tell the person why you are selecting them. It may seem common sense that you tell the person why you're selecting them to do a certain task, but that's not always the case. Oftentimes folks are like, yeah, they just gave me this position. I don't know what I'm doing, or who's there to help me, right? So now that person is not only afraid, they're anxious. They're afraid to try something new, right? So again, make sure you were very clear about articulating why that person was selected. So I can relate this to one of my earlier broadcasts where we talked about the F word, basically feedback, how that can help you to kind of develop your way of communicating with individuals, making sure they're clear about deficits or strengths well in advance of an opportunity presenting itself. Okay, so essentially you must relate to the person you delegate your certain responsibilities to the importance of why they were selected, and more importantly, why should they care? Why should they care, right? If the opportunity is to get them to the next level in terms of a promotion, to change, relocate overseas, for example, to run a international branch or department, like make sure they're clear about that so that they're fully invested, you have the buy-in, and you're going to ideally get the 100%, if not more, out of that person. Okay. The third and final tip and the associated strategy is for you as the leader, manager, to understand the big picture, right? Understand the big picture. What is the ultimate goal for you, for the organization? Is it to develop a competitive advantage, right? To develop, a stronger position in the marketplace? What is that? What is the ultimate goal, bigger picture? So I use the terms such as, is it upskilling? Just trying to develop a new way of functioning, a new department, a new way of streamlining things. For a lot of us, being able to go from working in the office environment to the virtual or home environment, that's been a rapid skill to learn, right? The other thing is to look at the big picture in terms of developing KSAs. So that's a terminology thrown out there that we use to define knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? What's the big picture here? right? In other words, is that opportunity for that person you delegate responsibility to an effort to make sure that anybody else coming into that department or into that role, they would have that skill set as an inherent part of their job? Or is it to see, hey, you know what skill sets do we need in order for that person to fulfill this job? Okay? Is it to develop people, leaders, managers, right? Again, focus, what is the big picture when we're delegating responsibility? Is it to promote team cohesiveness? As we know, teams are dynamic, right? Another D word, but not the one we're focusing on today. Teams are dynamic. So is it a big picture to make sure that the team stays as a unit? Or is it just to be able to manage team dynamics more effectively, right? Focus on the big picture. Ultimately, when we leverage our ability to delegate effectively, we leverage our ability to manage our time. And time, as you know, we can't get any more of it. We just have to be able to manage the time, that the amount we have with it, effectively, right? Because if we don't, then it is quote unquote a waste. So let me check in with my guests, my audience members, and see what kind of comments we have, and wrap up our talk for today. So Dr. Mashika stated, it's good to have a mix of personalities. Absolutely, right? We're focusing on diversity now in many ways, not only with race and gender and all this other stuff, but also based on personality types. Obviously, you want those personality types to be germane to business and serving the business versus creating chaos. Obviously, you want that to be the case. But sometimes you get what you sometimes you get more than you ask for when it comes to personalities. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts about today's topic on the D word, help a leader out? All right. Well, seeing none, I just want to say thank you for joining me on this Sunday for Strategy Sunday with Dr. Ken. I appreciate your loyalty and your followership in terms of making sure that we have a good game plan to approach our work week. I see one comment on the side, and I'll get to it at the end. But just wanted to make sure that just wanted to touch base with everyone, make sure everybody has a game plan for the week. My plan would be to check in with you spontaneously sometime during the week to see how we're doing with any instances of being able to delegate some responsibility, how you went through it. Did you find these tips helpful? Or the things that you tweaked with the tips? And that's good information and feedback for me to have as well, as we all learn and grow and try to create a healthier workplace for us all. Okay. Again, I am Dr. Ken Richmond, a board certified psychiatrist, veteran, and corporate leadership coach. I help organizations pinpoint their people problems so they can develop thriving workplaces with less turnover, improved workplace morale, and increased organizational performance. You can follow me at on this page at facebook.com/Dr. Ken Richmond. That's DrKenRichmond. Or you can visit my webpage at www.drkenrichmond.com, where you can also schedule to have a free strategy session with me, somewhere we can talk more one-on-one, individualized response regarding your particular issue or particular concern that you may have, and figure out if there's a strategy we can come up with to help you and your organization out. Okay. We're going to sign off right now, but let me touch base on these final comments before we go. So Prima said, knowing your weak and strong suits help you better yourself and your people. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And Dr. Kadisha says some folks have difficulty letting go of control. And that's usually the issue with not being able to delegate or feeling like you have to take on the full responsibility of everything within your department, organization, or sometimes even within your household, right? Yeah. Oh, Dr. Kadisha, thanks for that plug. So mental blocks, effectively, if somebody's not able to delegate, they are struggling with a mental block. And that's one of that's why I titled my book, Mental Blocks, a Concise Corporate Guide to Employee Mental Health. That's another resource you can get from my website or Amazon if you so choose to do that. Okay. Again, thank you all for joining me. I appreciate your time. Enjoy your Sunday, and I will see you next week or sooner.